Good morning, everyone. This is the April 30th meeting of the Knoxville Regional Transportation Planning Organization. I call this meeting to order. The first bit of business is determination of a quorum. Could you please take roll?
I will call the elected or appointed official's name. If you're serving as a proxy, please reply with your name. Mayor Tanya Martin,
Megan Brooks, serving for Mayor Martin.
Mayor Tony Akins, Mayor Roland Bradshaw,
Billy Pickle, Loudoun County Road Superintendent, serving for Mayor Bradshaw.
Mayor Scott Burton,
Larry Gann, serving for Mayor Scott Burton.
Mr. Troy Ebert,
Troy Ebert, proxy for the governor.
Mayor Terry Frank,
Catherine Baldwin for Mayor Frank.
Mayor Warren Gooch, Mayor Jeff Harris,
Jack Walls, proxy Jeff Harris.
Mayor Glenn Jacobs,
Here.
Mayor India Kincannon, Vice Mayor Tommy Smith,
Andrew Roberto's here for him.
Mayor Ed Mitchell,
Don Walker for Mayor Mitchell.
Commissioner Gina Oster, Commissioner Harold Pittner, Mr. Justin Biggs, Isaac Thorne, Mayor Larry Waters,
James Temple for Mayor Waters.
Mayor Andy White,
Brian Boone for Mayor Andy White.
Mayor Ron Williams.
Mayor Williams, present.
That's 15 present, sir.
Okay, that is a quorum then? All right, thank you. In efficiency, we actually knocked out both those items, introduction participants too. So do we have anyone on Zoom today?
We have Timothy from Stantec, who will be available later for questions, and Jeremy Mefford.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Okay,
Motion to approve.
is there a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. On to approval of the minutes from the March 26, 2025 meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Is there any discussion? Questions? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 3 on the agenda is the Mobility Plan 2050 and Air Quality Conformity Report. So I guess we need a motion, and then we can move on to discussion. So is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Okay. Is there any discussion or presentation on that, Mike?
Try this? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, I do have an overview. Today is the big day for us to adopt the mobility plan and conformity determination. We've been working on this for a long time and want to start out right up front to thank everybody that's for your time and effort and feedback throughout this process, all of our jurisdictions, of course, and you guys. We also have our state and federal partners and our consultant teams led by Stantec and Timothy Tressa-Levy is on the line in case there's any questions that come up, difficult questions that I can't answer. So this is the timeline slide we've showed throughout this process. We are at the finish point finally here to adopt today the mobility plan, which we update every 4 years. There has been a lengthy review process that we have to build into this. So draft plan was really finished back in January and then had a 20-day TDOT review and then a federal highway review of 30 business days, overlapping with public comment period that wrapped up last week. So here's where we are now. We have had a robust outreach process, both in person and virtual, throughout this timeframe and through the phases of development, through the website and virtual meetings. We did have a virtual public meeting on April 8th, and the recording of that's available on our website if anybody wants to watch that. We've had interactive maps, and we've really seen that the interactive process gets more feedback from that than in person these days, which is probably not surprising. But we had a map online. It looks somewhat like this here. We have this ARC map GIS experience that will be finishing out as the plan finishes up. But through this, we had projects that the public could comment on individual ones. We did have one option, just a simple drop down. Do you support, oppose, or neutral on the project? And we had 185 people provide feedback that way. overwhelmingly, there was support, which was good to see. And then you were able to provide written comments. Not all of us, 185, provided comments, but you can see some samples of those, and we get both sides of the story, of course, like Pellissippi Parkway extension. Some people say desperately needed, and other people say it's a terrible project. So we get feedback on both sides like that. In general, most of the feedback had to do with multimodal. A lot of people supporting the greenway type projects and so forth. And of course, congestion and safety are also big factor or issues. We did provide all these written comments in the plan in the Appendix D, public engagement sections, and we'll be forwarding those out to our technical committee members so they can see on their each individual project if there are any comments on those. So the way the plan's organized is up front, there's a fairly shorter main document with a lot of infographics, easier to digest. Then all the technical matter is in a detailed appendix of over 400 pages to wade into that information if folks so choose. The main document is laid out in 3 chapters as kind of an introduction, and then existing conditions, and then where are we heading as far as future conditions, and on the final project list, like a map for each county here. This is an example of kind of the main document, all the infographics and things that are easier to read. So with the map, we also included a table of projects as just snapshot of some of the Blount County projects in that section of the plan, and then the full list is in the appendix as well. Of course, we have all this posted onto our website for folks to view afterward. As I mentioned, there's also this ArcGIS experience that we're working on, really finishing out some more detail as we move forward with performance measures, tracking, and dashboards and things like that. So we'll be talking to you guys more about that moving forward. So that kind of summarized the mobility plan, a quick snapshot of what it is. Another facet of this that we have to deal with is air quality conformity. Every time we update our plan, we, as a former non-attainment and now maintenance area for some of the EPA standards for ground level ozone and particulate matter, we have to demonstrate our plan will conform to the air quality standards. This affects different geographic areas in the region based on these standards. The old 1997 ozone standard was a large region of 6 counties, and then that was replaced by a more strict standard in 2008 that pared it down to Knox Blount, just a part of Anderson County. So that, in essence, replaced the old ozone standard. However, we still have to do some level of addressing of that 97 standard as well. It's explained in a separate document. And then we also have fine particulate matter. This affects 4 counties, Anderson, Knox, Blount, Loudoun, and a small part of Roane County where the Kingston TVA plan is. What conformity is, just boiling it down to the basic level, is that since we're getting a lot of federal funding, for a lot of the projects are using federal funding, it's just saying we want to ensure those federal funds are not used on projects that will cause or contribute to violations of those standards. So the big hitter here is that if we cannot demonstrate conformity, then our area can enter what is known as a conformity lapse, and that could cause federal funding to be frozen for major capacity increasing type projects. So that's why this is so important. The way conformity is done is through a technical process. We quantify what the expected emissions that will result from the mobile sources. You know, I didn't mention this, but for ozone particulate matter, a significant contributor of those are from tailpipe emissions of vehicles on our roadways. Of course, those have been getting cleaner and cleaner over time as new standards and fuels are introduced. So we are improving in that regard. And we calculate those emissions and compare them against an allowable amount called a motor vehicle emissions budget, or MVEB. So we did document all this in kind of a standalone separate report that goes with the mobility plan. These are the tables comparing those emissions by analysis year. So we have to look at an early year and the final year of the plan, which is 2050, and then years in between so that there's not more than 10 years apart. I won't go through each of these numbers, but we are well below that allowable budget of emissions. For ozone, it's two emission types that contribute to ozone. It's volatile organic compounds, or VOC, and oxides of nitrogen. These combine in the atmosphere and sunlight, so ozone's a summertime issue. So we track both of those types of emissions, and we are well below the budget, so we passed that test. And then on PM 2.5 particulate matter, it's direct particulate matter. This is brake and tire wear and even dust on the roadway. And then also oxides of nitrogen can contribute to this. So we test for both of those emission sources. And once again, we are well below the required amount. And in fact, these are declining in the future. Again, that's a lot to do with vehicle fleet getting cleaner and replacing older dirty vehicles as you move forward. So final wrap up here. We did want to provide, of course, the official comment period ended on April 22nd, but we did want to provide an opportunity for the plan and conformity today in case there's any specific public comment on those. So just want to pause here if anybody wishes to provide that. So seeing none or...
Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that, I mean, this is a great plan, and I'm looking forward to supporting it. I just think it's important to note that these air quality regulations, it sounds, very technical and, could be perceived as onerous, but the reason behind it is because these emissions give people respiratory ailments, exacerbate existing ones, asthma, COPD, whatever. So anyhow, I just think it's important to link these regulations to actual health and well-being of the people who live in our community. So sometimes we focus just on the duty and requirements to fulfill and comply with these regulations, but there's a reason for them, and it's to help us have cleaner air to breathe better. So.
Yes, exactly. And I kind of gloss over all of this too, because we've talked about it before here, but these are the specific standards that EPA regulates because of human health impacts. You don't see greenhouse gas on this list, for example, and it's not a direct pollutant, but these are ones that affect the health and people with those chronic diseases such as that. So these are the ones that are especially important to track. And I've shown slides before. Our air quality is dramatically improved as a result of these different improvements over time, and also TVA's things on their power plants. So, just to kind of wrap up here, I just want to mention there is no federal approval action on the mobility plan itself. However, on the conformity side, there is US DOT, that's Federal Highway and Federal Transit Administration, in consultation with EPA, do have to provide a formal air quality conformity finding, and we have a deadline on that of May 31st, so next month. Otherwise, we could enter that conformity lapse thing I mentioned previously. And then once we get that letter, it starts the next 4-year clock that we have to update this plan by. So there is that requirement. So technical committee does recommend adoption of both the mobility plan and conformity, which we have in a single resolution in your packet. So that's all I have. If there's any questions, other questions I can answer.
Any questions or further discussion? So there's a motion and second on the floor. All in favor of adopting this amendment? Please, or this resolution?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes.
I have one real quick thing, if you'll indulge me. As Mike mentioned, this was an over 2-year work effort, so I just wanted to thank a few people. I wanted to thank the executive board once again for working with us, our technical committee, both under the leadership of Chair Jim Snowden and our former Chair Jack Qualls. Our consultant, Timothy Tresolavi at Stantec, and our TDOT partners, Troy Ebert, worked very closely with us on that. He was at a lot of our meetings. And then the project team, Mike Conger has been the lead on this. Like I said, it's over 2 years. I know he'll be glad to have a little bit of a break after this is done. And Craig Lipke has worked on the financial, trying to figure out how to place billions of dollars over a 25-year time frame. It's a lot of spreadsheets, and a couple of times we had to walk him off the ledge, but he got it done. And Jonah Bird helping us with multimodal, and Dallas for helping coordinate a lot of our meetings and work effort. And then real quickly, TPOe is part of planning, so I want to thank Amy Brooks, our executive director, and all the teams there, our communications team, our mapping team, our graphics team. Everyone touched this in some way, so it was a really big work effort, and I'm really grateful for all of their help. Thank you.
Thanks to everyone who worked so hard on that. The next item is the Transportation Improvement Program amendments. I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion and a second, and then we'll get into the presentation. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Craig, would you enlighten us, please?
Yep, thank you. So we do these fairly regularly as a normal order of business, as projects that are actively moving forward that are in the TIP, as we have schedule changes, cost changes, things of that nature. This one's a little different in that we have one of those normal order of business, and then we have, 10 additional amendments. Normally, we have 1 or 2 a month. We've got 11 this month. One's a normal order process on updating a project. The rest are to align the Transportation Improvement Program with the mobility plan schedule and list of projects that were just adopted, because those active projects that are moving forward need to be in alignment with the mobility plan. So when we adopt that, we end up with some trickle-down effects on the TIP. And these amendments are aligning the TIP with the mobility plan schedule. So again, we have 11 project amendments. 9 are air quality exempt projects, 2 are non-exempt projects. We're revising one project that's in the program. We're adding 1 project, and then we're removing 9 projects that are not active or in alignment that would be moving forward within the time frame that the current TIP is covering. As a rule, or as a general overview, you see there, we're removing substantial funding from the TIP because of removing those projects. Nearly $58 million that is being removed, and you see kind of the various programs that are impacted by that. The local LSTBG program, which is that large pot that the TPOe controls, kind of our largest and most flexible funding source. We're removing some state funding, a significant state NHPP reduction, state STBG, and then those smaller projects that you see there. The only thing that we're adding is state funding. The rest of those are all removals. And this is the kind of normal order of business, non-mobility plan related project. And this is City of Knoxville's traffic equipment upgrade project. And this was recently approved as a cost overrun to increase funding for the NEPA design and right-of-way phases. So we're basically adding those funding, the additional PM 2.5 CMAQ money into this. And then this project is being just from a development readiness stage, the program development for both the Kingston Pike and the Broadway corridor, all of that work is being carried forward in this project, but we are removing the construction phase at this point from this particular project, and then the Kingston Pike project and the Broadway corridor project will carry forward as their own construction-only projects as we develop that into the next TIP, those projects. So we do see this overall project cost is being reduced with this amendment, but it is just only that the construction phase is being removed, and this is a development-only program. So again, NEPA design and right-of-way funds all being added this year. You see fairly modest NEPA costs, $44,000, $437,000 of design, and $440,000 of right-of-way costs. That one's a little different, so I'll pause for a moment if there's any questions there, because largely after this, we're just going to have a lot of removals. If there are none, I will proceed. So now we're into the phases where, again, these are projects that relative to TDOT's 10-year plan and or the mobility plan. These projects are not actively being pursued at this point, so we are removing them from the TIP so that it aligns with the overall schedule and presents accurate records to the public when they take a look at that. So Montvale Road, State Road 336, is the TDOT project. As you see the description there, we're amending the TIP to remove this project. It was programmed for the right-of-way phase only, and this is removing, as you see there, about $9.3 million of STBG funding that would have been advancing the right-of-way phase there. Next, State Road 115, US 129 widening, also removing this project, which is a widening project. Amending the TIP to remove both the design and right-of-way phases. Again, this is not in the current 10-year plan within this time frame to move those phases forward. Also removing STBG funds. Emory Road, State Road 131, removing this project as well. This is a widening project. This was in the design phase only, removing about $1 million of NHPP funding from the TIP, again, because this project is not currently included in the TDOT 10-year plan. 1640, I-275, I-75 interchange, Sharps Gap. Many people, that's generally the reference here. Also, again, project is not included in the 10-year plan, removing both the NEPA and design phases. $8 million of NHPP funding will be removed from the program. That's not moving forward at this time. Chapman Highway, operational and safety improvements, removing this project. This is a large segment of the program that is being removed. I will reflect that the northern terminus of this project within the city of Knoxville from Blunt Avenue to Davenport, I believe, does have a Safe Roads and Streets and Roads for All grant that would advance some of the project on the northern end of this project, but they are
Woodlawn Pike.
Woodlawn Pike? Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, wrong road. My apologies. Not Davenport. That'd be the other direction. Amending the tip to remove this project. The design phase, again, that larger segment is not contained within the current 10-year plan, and that is removing $3 million of NHPP funding. I-75, remove this project. This is the Knox County section from near Emory Road to Raccoon Valley Road. Similar as the rest, amending the tip to remove the design phase, also not included in the 10-year plan. You see the funding impact there. Pellissippi Parkway interchange at Oak Ridge Highway and Solway, also removing that project, design and right-of-way phases. Same story, not in the TDOT 10-year plan, and you see the fiscal impact there, also removing funding. I-75 widening, TDOT project. This is from the split into Loudoun County, and that is removing the project. Oh, I'm sorry. This one is adding. My apologies. Yes. Thank you for catching me up. We're not removing anymore. We're adding this one. This is the new project that was included, and we're amending to add the NEPA and design phase for this interstate widening for that segment from the split down to exit 81. Moving away from TDOT primary projects, these are projects, the remaining two are local projects that are not moving forward as they're not contained in the mobility plan. This is Sevierville Road in Maryville. This was a reconstruction, 2 to 3 lanes. You see the description there. We are removing this project for right-of-way construction phase. This project is not included in the mobility plan. This does have a significant impact of removing some of the STBG funds from the program. And then Morganton Road roadway improvement project. This is another removal, again, for a local project that is not included in the mobility plan, removing design right-of-way and construction phases, also a significant impact to our STBG program. That was a lot of project discussion. The technical committee did review these and recommend approval of the project, as well, again, as that reaffirmation of the transportation planning process. And I will take any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just want to say, by amending the TIP, these projects that are removed, it doesn't mean they're eliminated. So for example, in a couple of years, let's say a project like 129 widening could be included in a future 10-year plan by TDOT. The TIP could be amended, future phases could be brought back in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As Mike pointed out to me there, this is a situation where, we can, projects can be added or removed from the TIP at any time. It is just a matter of aligning with what the current state of funding is.
And Craig, you might have already said this, my apologies, but a lot of this is basically dependent on TDOT's 10-year plan, correct?
Correct.
What they're going to do, okay.
We have seen, presentations at multiple times to this board, speaking to the TDOT 10-year plan and trying to align expectations with revenues. And what we start, we finish, I think, is a term that we've heard before. So this is a matter of, these are projects that, as it related to sifting the great needs that they have across the statewide, these are not currently within the plan, so our plan should reflect that as well.
Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, there's a motion on the floor. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. On to number 5, the number 5 item, which is the FY 26-29 Transportation Improvement Program Update. Craig, back to you.
Yep. So real quickly, we were just looking at the existing current TIP, which covers fiscal 23 through 26. That project, that program is updated periodically. We have an overlap year, so the next TIP covers fiscal years 26 through 29. Part of that project is having a solicitation out to all of the regional partners for what are the projects and programs that they're projecting and advocating to move forward within that time period. The big challenge is always that, as with anything, the fiscal asks always exceed the revenues that we have to be able to bring to programming to be able to advance those projects. So that's the big challenge, and I just wanted to present to you some general updates on where we are, and we're working with each of the partners here to align asks with revenue, basically. So that project call, we had 22 new applications that were received for new projects and 38 existing projects that are in the current TIP that we're going to move forward for additional phases or continue their development. So if you look at you see there that, again, the LSTBG is our far and away the largest pot of funding, but we had 18 new projects that were solicited for that, requesting about $73 million in new funding. The TAP program, that often funds greenway and multimodal projects. We had 2 new projects requesting $3.8 million. Carbon reduction program is a new program that we did not get any funding requests formally for, but we will, as a part of that consultation with everybody, that has similar eligibility to the CMAQ program and also some overlap with the TAP program. So we'll work with the local agencies to kind of shift funding from that program as it's available to meet the overall ask that happened. So that's just a little clarification there. And then CMAQ PM 2.5 funding, we do have funding that TDOT is coordinating with us to have programming authority, and we had about $2.5 million across 2 projects that were requested for that program. The rollover projects, you see, substantial ask there. Again, $108 million requested, $62.5 million of carryover costs that are currently programmed, and then $46 million of new costs, which would indicate either a cost increase or a new phase request that's being added to the programming balance for those future years. TAP program, about $10 million requested for that, $4 million of carryover and $6 million of new. Carbon reduction program, $3 million, split between $1.8 million of carryover and $1.2 million of new. And then the CMAQ PM 2.5 program, that is $17.3 million with carryover of 4.3 and then 12.6 million of new project asks. And then there were also 8 existing statewide CMAQ project rollover applications. The big picture here that we see, this is kind of the important table to keep in mind, and this kind of reflects the dollar figures that we talked about with the last time. So what you see across is our revenue there, across that very top line in revenue, and then we have a balance carryover that would move into that as well. So if you add just for one example of math, we've got $13.6 million of rough STBG revenue in fiscal 26. You would add that to the $65.6 million of carryover balance for a total then of $79.2 million available in theory to program projects. And then you'll see kind of that rollover program, and then what the balance looks like is that 4th line down, rollover balance only. So when we get out to the end of fiscal 29, we've got about $13.1 million of unprogrammed revenue if we just move things straight forward from exactly what was asked into the document. I will point out that middle little green line that barely shows up there that, of course, we do have a contingency reserve program where we retain 10% of the projected revenue so that we can accommodate cost overruns as projects come through the process. So that top line, we have to keep that in mind. So essentially what that means is the rollover projects take the great lion's share down to roughly $1 million of the total revenue that we would have available to program. And then new project requests then substantially go above that dollar figure. So we've got a substantial challenge working with our local partners, whether that is prioritizing what projects are being asked or potentially adjusting schedules, so that a lot of times we say we've got a construction phase that's requested in fiscal 29. That's obviously the biggest lion's share of a cost on a project. If we can shift that phase, if that it makes sense, and oftentimes we get optimistic scheduling. If we move a project from the construction phase from 29 out, then clearly that's going to represent a pretty substantial change in our overall fiscal constraint picture. I'll pause. I've got several slides that are kind of just these snapshots of the program, so I'll pause if there's any questions right now kind of on what you're looking at there. If there are none, I can kind of grab, this is the TAP program, so very similar, just kind of that revenue, what's coming in, as well as the carryover balance. We've got about $5.5 million of carryover. You add that to the revenue in year one, so we've got about 7.1, and then you take away what did we ask for a rollover project. You see that we've got a little red number in that year, so we're gonna have to massage some scheduling to make sure that that works. Add the revenue back in 2027. Substantial ask in year two, so we'll have to revise some dollars. But ultimately, when we get out to 2029 there, we're actually in a pretty good position so that we have a relatively small a balance there that would allow us to kind of shift some things. So I think we're gonna have pretty reasonable time in making this picture work as we shift funding around. And we also have that carbon reduction program that actually has a fairly significant balance when you kind of do the same math in this table. With the carryover there and no new project requests, we're going to be able to flex some asks into this program, I think, to overall provide some relief to the program. CMAQ PM 2.5, this one is one that we're working in consultation with TDOT to have programming authority for those out years. They kind of they have been working with this kind of on a contingent year by year basis, so I'm not making any projections on what the revenue is there. You can kind of anticipate that those would be, you can kind of do the math in your head, and assuming that the revenues in year one would be similar to the revenues in those out years. So we would anticipate having some substantial ability to program some projects here. But that one, I don't want to get out over our skis and permission from TDOT to program those revenues. A real quick schedule. We are working at fiscal constraint coordination and kind of looking at prioritization with the project applicants. Have been having some discussions with them, and we'll have them kind of in the remainder of this week and probably next week to try to get to some numbers there. We would anticipate, and we have some basic TDOT information on projects. We'll consult with them on making sure that the program reflects what they need to have, and then draft tips sometime in that June time period for TDOT review, and then back to you guys hopefully in July, and on schedule for looking towards an adoption at the October rounds of the technical and executive meetings.
I had a question. Yeah. Can you, usually there's a little acronym list, and that wasn't in my packet this time. So I remember, CRP is carbon reduction and AQ is air quality, but what's the L? What does that stand for?
So L in this case, people, local is what this reference. Some people you'll see different.
And what is STB?
Surface Transportation Block Grant. So
Okay,
that is
got it.
the largest, most flexible kind of federal highway
Okay.
programming funding. So that's LSTBG, our reference for the MPO or TPO controlled Surface Transportation Program balance.
TDOT gets STD.
Yes. So, and TDOT certainly has some as well, just statewide, but this is just the TPO derived funding that comes. And then TA in this case is Transportation Alternatives, which is then, again, that multimodal focused programming, carbon reduction program, and.
Yep. Okay, thanks. And this update assumes that, contemplates that we just did those, item number 4, we did the amendments to the TIP. Right? This update contemplates that we
Correct.
just passed the items in number 4, so.
Correct,
Okay.
yes. This is, it's always kind of a moving project, and we're trying to keep those starting balances kind of assume what we would assume to happen between now and the adoption. So projects that are moving forward, they're obligated, and you're always trying to project what those are going to be, and then any cost overruns that would happen would have slight adjustments there. So it's always kind of a moving picture.
Get the TDOT projects separately.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that
TDOT projects come in. This is all local.
Yes, this is all the local projects. TDOT projects are not involving those things, so yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? Thank you, Craig. Moving on to the TDOT 10-year plan update. Mr. Justice, will you mind coming to the podium? Thank you.
Have you ever wondered how Tennessee's roads and bridges are planned, funded, and built? It's a complex process like a giant game of Tetris, where every piece must fit perfectly together. The Tennessee Department of Transportation reevaluates our 10-year project plan every year, but it's not as simple as just picking and scheduling projects. There's a lot more at play. The scope, the funding, the environmental impact, everything must align. Remember, Tetris. Every project needs to be carefully assessed, considering many factors, including importance to the community and how it fits into the statewide transportation plan. A critical part of this process is looking at things like right-of-way sensitivity, environmental mitigation efforts, and the need for federal approval. All can make, break, or delay a project. Just like a well-run race, each phase needs to be successfully executed to cross the finish line before any shovels dig into the dirt, and those phases may take years. Sometimes a project phase hits a roadblock. For example, we may uncover historic artifacts during the environmental phase, or we must diligently work to help relocate families who live in the project's right-of-way. These are delicate situations that require immense care that could take months, sometimes years, to resolve. Other times, emergencies like a bridge crack or slope failure can suddenly become a top priority. When that happens, TDOT must adjust the 10-year plan and reallocate funds to address the immediate need. On the flip side, a project may be moved up when a local community brings additional dollars to the table or new funding is secured. It's a delicate balancing act, but it's all part of TDOT's commitment to keeping Tennessee's infrastructure connected, safe, and functional. Before the 10-year plan, things weren't always so organized. Projects were often stuck in limbo, awaiting funding, with no clear roadmap to move them forward. Now, thanks to the 10-year plan, TDOT has created a prioritization process that evaluates each project based on safety, cost, need, and deliverability. This process is thoughtful and dynamic. We constantly reevaluate to adapt to new circumstances. This new approach allows TDOT to move projects forward more effectively, ensuring what gets started gets finished. But that's not all. TDOT delivers more than the projects listed in the 10-year plan. You'll find additional planned work posted on our website, ranging from our 3-year pavement, bridge, and safety plans to our funding programs for transit, aviation, rail, and traffic operations and management. These plans provide even more clarity for Tennesseans and the industry, setting expectations for the funded work to come. TDOT is committed to transparency throughout this entire process. By laying out clear expectations and working with communities and stakeholders, we ensure the road to progress is accessible and clear for everyone. TDOT is deliberate in our approach, dedicated to delivering for Tennessee. That's why we're asking you to build with us.
All right, good deal. So we got a lot to cover this morning. I'll try to make it as quick and painless as possible. But before I dive into the 10-year plan that just came out, I want to give you an update on the governor's budget request that just got approved last week. So we have a 10-year plan that just came out. As you may or may not be aware, the governor's budget request, he requested an additional $1 billion plus an $80 million recurring change to TDOT's funding model out of the general fund. The 10-year plan that we released, it did not include how we're going to spend this extra money. We are anticipating sometime in by the end of June, having a new updated 10-year plan come out that includes how we're going to use this extra $1 billion plus. But to give you a little bit of background on the governor's proposed budget, you can see several items there that have recurring and non-recurring items, and the total coming out to $1.1 billion. Again, we ask for about an $80 million recurring transfer of tire tax money to come to TDOT, and we'll get into why that is in just a few minutes. But you can see the different things that we are looking to put this money towards. Pavement program investment. As you know, our pavements are the lifeblood for keeping people going where they need to go. So trying to keep those in tip-top shape and getting everything we can out of them is of the utmost importance. So you can see in recurring, the $80 million recurring, we're proposing $16 million going to pavements. But in the non-recurring one-time transfer, we're looking at $108 million going to that pavement program. Bridge investments, we'll talk about that a little more in just a few minutes. Spot safety program again, state infrastructure fund. I'll get into what all these things are in just a few minutes. But rural service patrol, everybody loves what we see in the urban areas with the help trucks, but we are also looking to expand that into rural areas, and it'll look a little different, but this is a kind of a kickstart in that realm. Mowing and litter, trying to keep the state looking like we would want it to look, so we get to enjoy the looks, but also that the people visiting our states will see those improvements as well. Pay for performance is really a internal TDOT and state payment for employees. I'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. But you can see the list of things that we intend to spend this $1.1 billion on. The 10-year plan development, with this in mind, is all those things they just talked about, but it's holistically looking at projects from as far back as the 86 road program, which was 243 original projects, the Improve Act, 962 projects, but not saying we can only work on those things that were identified in the past. We're also looking at emerging needs and community input, but all of those things are important in the 10-year plan. Prioritization for the 10-year plan included project performance, project delivery, and project cost. Obviously, performance being with safety, congestion, economic growth, preservation, all those kinds of things that each project is graded on. But then we also look at project delivery. How easy, how risky is the project to deliver? We definitely want to not put funding at risk, so the most deliverable projects rise to the top. Not to say we are risk averse. I mean, if something performance is so key but still has high risk, we will tackle that as well. Project cost, but all those things go into it. It's a balancing act, right, to figure out the exact things that need to fit in based on those three criteria. What we have also tried to do with our funding conversations is paint the picture of where we are with infrastructure funding, not just here in Tennessee, but this is the same nationwide, right? We had $3 billion come in 2024. We produced that first 10-year plan. We have annually $616 million of our normal transportation funding going to new construction, and our budget is $1.3 billion. So, as you know, with the $3 billion and our $1.3 billion, that comes up to about $15 billion over a 10-year period. But $15 billion is identified as funding available to address the issues across the state, but we also know that there's a $38 billion in identified transportation need across the state. So we still have a pretty significant gap between need and funding availability. Been making great strides with the additional funding added to the process, but we want to keep that conversation going. You also see the two graphs to the right. It's well documented that there by decade, how our bridges were built. That's the number of bridges, percentage of bridges that were built during each one of those decades. And you can see there in the 60s and 70s is where the biggest hit of new bridges came online. And if you know much about bridge investment, they generally are expected to last about 70 years. So we know that the bill is coming due on those things. Now, that's, you know, you can prolong those with restorations and repairs and that kind of thing. But point we're trying to show here is that infrastructure that's already in place, state of good repair, is driving a lot of conversation these days. Pavement condition as well. you'll see from 2012, marching forward, we kind of started seeing our money not go as far as it used to, making difficult decisions on how you pay and where you pay and what you put your money towards. Shows a decline in our payment condition. So again, that's what's driving our conversation to put additional money into that state of good repair with bridges and pavements. And when you compare us to what we try to call peer states that are similar to us in some ways, but you look at our funding scenario, right? Percentage of our budget that goes towards transportation is quite low compared to Florida and Texas. Transportation spending rank is quite low compared to those two as well. And our fuel tax, while similar, it's in between the two. There's some work that could be done there as well. Supplemental revenue, we have no bonding, no tolls, and no index on gas. Texas has bonds and tolls, and Florida has a gas index tax, or tax index, which we didn't get. So much like building materials, like asphalt, when we do a contract, we have an index that says this is what the cost is at the beginning of a contract. But if you have a 4-year contract, you don't know what asphalt costs towards the end. So we know what that cost is, and we have an indices, and we pay based off of how, when it's time to use those materials, the cost can go up and down. We pay an adjustment. If you have a gas index, it's the same way. When you set that gas tax at a certain level, you say this is what the buying power is today. But if gas were to go up and cost of living goes up and that index goes up with that gas, then the gas tax would go up as well. It would kind of ride that. So we got 6 cents out of the Improve Act. We asked for indices at that time. It did not pass. So as inflation has gone, that 6 cents has gone less and less valuable, right? But if we would have had a gas index, it would have climbed with the cost. Our report card is still pretty good there. We're a C, so we're keeping up with people that are spending quite a bit more money than we are out of their total state budget. Revenue analysis, what you'll see here is from 2025 and into 26 that you can see the $1 billion ad. So we got $3 billion ad in 2024. You come into 2025, that's our normal transportation dollars available. And then you see in 2026, we add another billion from the request at the general fund transfer. But you can see generally it's the same, right? You see the states went up by $1 billion, but there's no growth. But then you also see the state user fee collections on the side there. You also see at the percent change at the bottom, it's pretty much staying flat, right? So that brings us into how we spend our money. This is an important piece that most people didn't understand. But you see across the top, that's our flat budget. It's been flat for many years. And then you'll see the dark blue across the top is what it takes for us to take state dollars and put towards federal match. So we have to spend those monies every year to get all the federal dollars available to us. And then the white across the bottom is what we have available to spend on other projects. And you can see that's declining partially because of what's in the middle, which is what it costs to pay state employees. As people have made more money, we've made more investment to keep up with the market over the past few years. TDOT is different than all other state departments. When the governor puts a percent raise in for employees, it generally comes out of it comes out of the general fund for every department except TDOT. We were self-sufficient. So anytime the governor would give a raise, that came tax revenues out of, it came out of the gas tax. So the gas tax is supposed to go help with roads. And in fact, a good chunk of it would increase or decrease available dollars to spend everywhere else because we were having to pay state or TDOT employees more. So that's part of that $80 million recurring thing is to transfer monies from the general fund to put into state or TDOT employees, so that more of the gas tax would go to actual roadway projects instead of paying people, if that makes sense. Long haul traffic and tonnage forecast. I mean, this is the crossroads of America that we happen to be, right? I mean, we are seeing from 2012 to 2020 or 2050 huge increases in the amount of freight that we anticipate coming through here. That's more damage to our roads and provides economic viability, which is great, but it definitely has an impact on what we're trying to get done. So again, more reasons to put into state of good repair. The recurring request, you'll see, I kind of went over this just a few minutes ago, but the recurring $80 million, $16 million going to resurfacing, paving, bridge preservation. Again, that could be restoration, repairs, or replacement. The $16 million on an annual basis. Mowing and litter. Spot safety program is pretty small. It's places where we go in and do like a turn lane or signage or some signal work. Or add a little shoulder here or there. We've traditionally not had a huge amount of money available for that statewide. We have increased that from about $1.25 million to $13 million. So that's going to be something we could go help with in spot locations. The Rural Service Patrol, I kind of mentioned that a minute ago, and the pay for performance, $12 million.
Sorry, what is pay for performance, please?
That's where the state TDOT people's pay is getting increased on an annual basis.
Okay.
We're taking that money out of general fund to pay TDOT employees instead of using transportation dollars. And then this is the non-recurring, $109 million going into payments to give a good jump start there and start trying to change that trend of a downward condition into a more improved condition where we want to be. $59 million one-time money going into bridge preservation, and then another $7 million one-time infusion into spot safety. And then the $50 million state infrastructure fund is a $50 million that we're putting aside for local governments to come in and ask for a very low-cost interest rate loan, if you will. And then the bulk, another big chunk of that billion, is a $775 million that are going into the change in the 10-year plan that I mentioned a few minutes ago. So we're going to have projects that come into the new revised 10-year plan based on this $775 million one-time money. Again, legislatively, we're getting the $775 million that's passed in April through the governor's budget, and in June we are to come back and give that 10-year plan release. We do anticipate that it will be earlier than the end of June. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not more in May. We anticipate that pretty soon, actually. And then, of course, the money would be available in July 2025 to get started in spending money and going forward. So that's kind of that real quick. Just an update on some real wins from the Modernization Act. America's River Crossing, huge investment there, $250 million set aside from state dollars, but we ended up getting another $250 million from Arkansas to help address this issue, and another $500 million infusion from the federal government through a grant because we had the $250 million available to spend on the project to begin with. We put $300 million to use with state aid, and that has been used well to date. $211 million, over 2/3 of that money has been spent by the locals. So that's a big win there. Hurricane Helene recovery. As everybody knows, here in East Tennessee, we had the hurricane come through and dump a ton of rain in North Carolina, which affected a lot of our border counties there along North Carolina. We were able to respond there the way we did because we had all this money on hand. Now, being good stewards as we are going to get a lot of that money back from FHWA, but we were able to front load it with some of this TMA money to make it go immediately. Choice lanes are moving along at a good rate. We're having good success there, and I anticipate getting to a close of financial close probably in the next year.
Yeah. Could you go back that slide?
Sure.
Are any of these helping our region?
Well, the region, yes. The Hurricane Helene definitely helped our region, but
The Knoxville TPOe region. Where we're here today.
The $300 million definitely had a piece in every county. It's a state aid infusion that went into every county, so every county in the TPO got money from that. But those are just some successes from the TMA. There are definitely successes here regionally with the PD&E study that's gotten going through the I-40, I-75 corridor. That infusion has already started, and we'll get into the other projects that are listed in the 10-year plan as we move into the rest of the conversation. So that's a quick budget breakdown. I don't think we need to spend much time there, but this is kind of the breakdown of how the money in the 10-year plan lines out. Roughly $2 billion for Region 1, and you can see the percentages play out traditionally, how the percentages play out based on lane miles across the state to show even distribution there. And of course, $750 million of the TMA is guaranteed to be spent in each region. So you can see that bottom line there. So why now and why infrastructure, right? I mean, we're seeing huge growth in what things cost, and it's just going to continue to go if we don't get started now. It's just going to further outpace what we can get done to deal with this. And the gap just continues to grow. More need gets identified, all those kinds of things. So that's basically the why now. But you can see all those different things that we deal with congestion, right? You end up with a huge waste of fuel, people sitting in traffic, a lot of lost productivity, people sitting in traffic, and lots of hours lost just sitting in traffic. So it's just going to potentially get worse. So the faster we can start dealing with some of these issues, the better. 10-year plan update. Again, $211 of the $300 million from the state aid has already been spent. Year one delivery, 74%, which we're not done with that year. We're already 74% complete, and 90% of projects in the plan are on schedule for the targeted expenditure. This is the 10-year plan update, if you will, and this has the projects that are in the Knoxville TPOe. You can see Edgemore Road, State Route 170. We have two sections of that, one in the Oak Ridge portion from Mountain Lake west, and then one from Mountain Lake Drive east is more in the county all the way out to Clinton Highway. Big project, big bridge, estimated in a $350 million range right now. This is a project that actually moved in the 10-year plan. It was shown for right-of-way in FY25. We have now moved it into FY26 for right-of-way due to a change in our NEPA document. At the time that the first plan came out, we anticipated a categorical exclusion project for NEPA. And in fact, after we got full analysis in that we're going to be in the 30 to 40 range of relocations, had to change to an environmental assessment, full environmental assessment. So that put a year delay into the right-of-way phase. The construction phase for the county portion of that route slides into FY29, which will align with the Oak Ridge portion that was already in FY29. So we'll have one construction project instead of two, which is a benefit. The next phase of relocated Alcoa Highway, Stage 2, is in the 10-year plan. It's currently shown in FY28. That project is easy delivery for us. We could technically let it this year, except Phase 1 is underway and has to be done before Phase 2 can go to construction. As long as Phase 1 finishes on time, FY28 is a solid slam dunk for that project. Another project that moved in the 10-year plan is Pellissippi Parkway Extension. It was shown in FY32 in the previous 10-year plan for right-of-way, and has now moved into FY26 due to a statewide partnership application from the county, Blount County, and the cities of Alcoa and Maryville. That was accepted, so we've moved right-of-way up to FY26. I-75 at Emory Road, Divergent Diamond is still... It's not in the new 10-year plan because it was in the last one, and it will go out to construction this year, so it won't show in the 26 to 28. It will be delivered in 25. The corridor study continues on. We're ramped up pretty good. I'll just put it that way. We have some coordination meetings today with the TPOe to look at that and start moving towards our public engagement, hopefully sometime in June. Then you move into repayments, or not repayments, but making financially whole. The Cherokee Trail project, as you know, is $187 million. At the time we let it, it went higher than we thought it would, but it was definitely something we needed to award. So we had to backfeed some dollars from the TMA in there to make that project whole. So you see the payout with $4.5 million in 24, another $51 million in 27, and $17 million in 28. And then Loudoun County, the I-75 widening, which we consider rural interstate widening, but still in the TPO, from I-75, I-40 interchange out west down to Lenore City. So we have that project in there as well. I think Doug included in this slide projects out of Sevier County just because of their proximity to the to this TPO. And we have 3 projects in there in Sevier County. One Veterans Parkway extension, which is going to construction this year, we think in August. Phase 2 of Veterans Parkway extension is in there as a general fund transfer project from FY22. And Sevier County I-40 interchange at 408 come in there as a secondary interchange along I-40.
And I did want to add, we created this slide, so this was not a TDOT slide, but we had 2 projects slide out, the Watt Road and the Sharp Gap, almost $600 million, but we're assuming that that's part of the I-40-75 corridor study, and maybe that's, we don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Sure, yeah, we'll find out what comes out of that study as it progresses, but definitely the I-40 corridor investment project in last year's 3-year plan that came out, it listed Watt Road and Campbell Station Road and the way stations as items of the bigger project. So I would anticipate seeing something on those through the development of that PD&E. That's what I got. Any questions?
No questions? Thank you, Dexter. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Next up is the TDOT and Federal Highway Administration update. So I assume that included the TDOT update, I assume.
Yeah, I did have a couple things,
Okay,
real quick.
Doug.
There is a new Safe Street for Roads All call out there, a notice of funding opportunity. Those applications are due in June 26. Mike said it's not too bad of an application to do, so if you've really got something out there, go ahead and put it in there. And we've had some success in this region in getting those. And the other thing from FHWA, we found out that the planners that we work with, and you know Sean Santaya, Zach Coleman, and Melanie Murphy, they all took the buyout. So 2 of them left, and I think Sean may be there just for the rest of this week. So first of all, I want to say we really appreciate working with those guys. They've been always a great resource for us and have helped us out a lot. But, it's just always a changing environment at the federal government right now, so we'll have to see. I know there are people there, and they've kind of given us some contacts that we'll be working with, but they're definitely short-staffed right now. I think that's all I had.
Thank you. Moving on to other business, the TPO Technical Committee will meet May 13th at 9 a.m. in this building, and then the next executive board meeting will be Wednesday, May 28th at 9 a.m. in the small assembly room, the room that we're currently in. Is there anything else on their other business? Okay, seeing none, move on to the public comment period. Members of the public may address the executive board with a 5-minute time limit for each person. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board? All right, seeing none, without objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.